Okay, the second set of vocabulary are actually adjectives. We've already defined what an angle was, so that's our noun, but acute, right up to, straight are all adjectives that describe angles. So what I did here on the back is I gave you the definition again, the vocabulary, the definition, but this time I've given you a sentence. So let's see if we can, if we understood this notation and draw the correct angle. Okay, so an acute angle measures between 0 and 90 degrees. It almost makes more sense to start with a right angle. A right angle measures exactly 90 degrees. So to know what that looks like, that's like the corner of your piece of paper, or this box right here. So, for example, something about like that would be a right angle. So in my sentence it says the measurement of angle MAT. So that means the vertex, our middle letter was A, is A. So measurement of angle MAT. Remember, you trace it out, either MAT or MAT. But A is going to have to be the vertex in the middle. The measurement of angle MAT is 90 degrees. It is a right angle. Now another notation I want to show you is that if you put a little box in the corner of your angle, you're showing that that's 90 degrees. So sometimes you'll write a number in here. You could write the number 90, but instead you could just put a little box. That's the symbol for right, 90-degree angle. Okay, so the acute angle they're the cute little angle. They're the little ones. So for example, this would be an acute angle. It's between 0 and 90, between nothing and this corner, something less than that. So the vertex again is your middle letter I, and you're tracing it out, T-I-P or T-I-P. T-I-P. Okay, and sometimes when you're talking about an angle, it helps to see that it's really this little area in here. So sometimes a little mark you put there, it just really focuses on what the angle of that diagram is. Okay, obtuse. Let's first define straight angle. 180 degrees, well, that's twice 90. And what that ends up looking like is a line. Sometimes you'll hear a straight angle defined as opposite rays. So you have one ray and then a second ray from the same endpoint in the opposite direction, and they create a straight line, but if you're talking about the angle, you would say a straight angle. It measures exactly 180 degrees. So obtuse has to be somewhere between 90 and 180. So something like this would be obtuse. It is larger, between 90, larger than the corner, because that would be about here, and less than the straight line, because that would be about here. Okay, so again I'm talking about this little part right in here. The vertex O, angle J-O-B, and it could go J-O-B as long as O is the middle one, the middle letter is at your vertex. Okay, this one was the measurement of angle N-E-T, so N-E-T or N-E-T, and that's a straight angle. Okay, the final three here, well, let's see, collinear and coplanar. Let me talk about those kind of grouped together. If you know what the word co means, co-workers, that's somebody you work with together, you might notice that, take off the co here and we've got linear. Linear, the noun form is line. Linear would be if you're describing something, right? Like a linear equation, an equation that makes a line. Planar, well, plane would be your noun, and planar describes something that's in the form of a plane. Okay? So when you put the word or the prefix co in front, you're saying that they're together. So collinear is an adjective that describes things that are on the same line, and coplanar is an adjective that that describes things that are on the same plane. Okay, so let's see what that would look like in a picture. Over here it said points S, A, and T. So S, A, and T. Now, if they are collinear, that means that when you draw a line, it will go through all three of them. Those are collinear. Now, I used another word here, non-collinear. It says point P is non-collinear. Sorry. So non means not. So I'm saying it's not on the line with S, A, and T. So, for example, I could put point P here. Okay, and then over here I've got non-coplanar. So points B, I, R, and D are coplanar. So let's put those together on the same plane. So remember, a plane sometimes is depicted like a parallelogram. B, I, R, and D. Those are not collinear, but they are coplanar. And then my second sentence here says that point S is non-coplanar. So when I say it's not together on the same plane, imagine, like, let's say this is the top of a box. So let's just bring this off the page. Alright, I've kind of made this into three-dimensional a little bit. Non-coplanar would not be on that flat top surface of the box. So for example, S might be over here on the right side. Okay, so point S is non-coplanar. Alright, I've got one more adjective here, congruent. You're going to hear this all over the place in geometry. Congruent is an adjective that describes things that are exactly the same size and shape. Okay, so that could be two congruent segments, two congruent angles, two congruent triangles, two congruent squares. It's an adjective, so it just describes things that are exactly the same. So my example here says that segment ON is congruent to segment AT. So I'm going to draw two segments with the same length. So one of them I'm going to name ON, segment ON, and it's congruent to segment AT. Doesn't matter the order I put those two letters in. And this is read as, remember, this symbol with no arrows is segment ON is congruent to segment AT. That's how you would say that. How you would depict that in a picture. So if you ever see on two segments or two sides of a shape lines like that on it, it means that they have the same length. Okay, so one little mark means that those two would have the same length. If I drew a third segment here, and it was a little shorter, and I might put 2 marks and tell you that, okay, that means that these two are the same, but this is some different length. Okay? You can also do this with angles. So let me just scoot this down and we'll draw a couple angles at the bottom. I want to show you what that would look like. If I had 2 angles that were congruent, the symbols I would use is I would put 1 mark in each one of them. And then if I had another angle that had a completely different length, or I'm sorry, different measure, length would be for a segment. If I had an angle with a different measure, I might put 2 marks in that one to say, well, okay, these two are the same, but this is some other measurement.